There is no reason to believe that evolution will suddenly come to an end at any particular point in time or stage of development. Realization and actualization of various enhanced powers of knowledge and action, some of which are already showing signs of emergence, are only a first stage. As the supramental consciousness manifests more fully, it will need to have a vehicle that is more adaptable, more powerful, and more resilient than the current human body, with all its intricate organ systems that are subject to breakdown, weakness, and failure, and which require material sustenance to build and maintain the physical frame. It should be remembered, however, that biological adaptation and mutation processes do not generally happen overnight. For instance, Neanderthal man, Homo neanderthalensis, roamed the earth for upwards of 350,000 years and interbred with modern man, Homo sapiens. Evolutionary adaptations occurred, and the interbreeding brought some of the genetic qualities of the Neanderthal into our modern human being, just as the same interbreeding brought some Homo sapiens genetic material into the Neanderthal. There is evidence today that our modern diet, pharmacological and chemical usage are actually changing our DNA, as also the nuclear radiation that was unleashed during the 1940s through the 1960s. This represents a rather rapid change, far more rapid than systematic species-wide mutation would bring about through natural adaptation. And thus, as would be expected, we see many changes which can only be considered negative or detrimental. Longer-term changes seem to have occurred as the race has evolved. For example, science generally recognizes a number of vestigial elements of the human body, including the tail, seen in fetuses but dropping off before birth generally, the ability to move the ears to locate and concentrate sound, and wisdom teeth, among others. These represent seemingly subtle, but nevertheless real, adaptations over long periods of time to differing circumstances of human life. Bringing forward the inherent powers already existent within the human framework is a process of optimization. Genetic change and structural modification would only follow as more radical changes make themselves felt. Change associated with changes in consciousness, in order to optimize the impact of that consciousness, will take time. Sri Aurobindo raises the question of how the subtle energy centers and their activation will change the needs and actions of the physical framework of the body, and the potential for genetic adaptation to streamline and eventually potentially do away with some of the organ systems and their limitations. Sri Aurobindo writes, quote, "This would be a first potent change, but not by any means all that is possible or desirable. For it may well be that the evolutionary urge would proceed to a change of the organs themselves in their material working and use, and diminish greatly the need of their instrumentation and even of their existence. The centers in the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, of which one would become conscious and aware of all going on in it, would pour their energies into material nerve and plexus and tissue and radiate them through the whole material body. All the physical life and its necessary activities in this new existence could be maintained and operated by these higher agencies in a freer and ampler way and by a less burdensome and restricting method. This might go so far that these organs might cease to be indispensable and even be felt as too obstructive. The central force might use them less and less, and finally throw aside their use altogether. If that happened, they might waste by atrophy, be reduced to an insignificant minimum, or even disappear. The central force might substitute for them subtle organs of a very different character, or, if anything material was needed, instruments that would be forms of dynamism or plastic transmitters rather than what we know as organs. End quote. Reference Sri Aurobindo, The Mind of Light, The Divine Body, page 60.